Hey guys, subscribe for daily knife content. And if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for links to some great online retailers. There's also individual links for knives that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Jim Skelton and Reate Production Tibia. Very cool. So I'm going to tell you guys right now, I got this weird thing about big aggressive Wharncliffes. So this is something that's very attractive to me. And I want to let you guys know of that bias right at the beginning of the video before I get going. It's funny because typically when I describe, an ideal knife for me, I'm usually describing something more along the lines of a drop point, and then some crazy, really awesome, aggressive Wharncliffe comes along and I just lose my mind for it. So this is something that I am personally very attracted to. So just keep that in mind as we're moving forward. These were sent to me by Jim Skelton. You guys probably know who Jim Skelton is. If you don't know who Jim Skelton is, please go follow Skelton Bladeworks on Instagram and check out his YouTube channel. This channel, the motivation behind it was there's so much that was, basically it's owed to the enjoyment that I got from watching his channel years before I started mine. In fact, I've said this before, the entire Knife Guy series, 102 episodes now. It's all, that series was based on, the knife rambles that he used to do. I loved that. So yeah, huge influence on this channel. So Jim, thank you very much for sending these. If you guys didn't know, Jim, started off, he's done a bunch of different things, but how I came to know him was through YouTube, watching his YouTube channel. And then in 2018, he became a full-time knife maker. Has a bunch of different designs. The Tibia is one of them. And this is a collaboration through Reate to bring this knife down to, because his knives are full custom knives, to bring these knives down to a price point that a lot more people can afford. So this is pretty cool. I was pretty excited to take a look at these. I don't get to keep these. These are going back to Jim. Just wanted to let you guys know. There will be a link for these guys right down in the description. By the time you're watching it, I don't know if it's going to be the pre-order link or it's going to be the totally available version of the knife. In any case, there's a link right down in the description. I'd invite you to go check it out. Thanks so much to my generous patrons for supporting me right now. There's a link for Patreon down in the description. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. We've got two versions of this here, but I'm going to take this one, move it over, and we're just going to take a look at this one for a moment here while I do measurements. So this is a compact EDC-sized fixed blade. You guys know that my channel is generally dedicated to folding knives. The reason I don't cover a lot of fixed blades is because I don't find a lot of use for most fixed blades that are really popular in today's world, because they're really big, right? Now in Kansas, I can carry whatever I want, but I just don't find it comfortable to carry around a fixed blade in my day-to-day because of what I use a knife for. So if there's going to be a fixed blade, a lot of what is required for a fixed blade to be attractive to me is it compact? Is it smaller? Is it something that I can actually put in my pocket? And you can probably wear this around your neck, you can tuck it into you can probably carry it a bunch of different ways, but the way that I would carry it is in my pocket, right? Is it going to fit comfortably in my dedicated knife pocket? And that is the case with this. This is a more compact fixed blade, and that was definitely one of the reasons that I was attracted to it. Overall length of this guy is coming in at about 7¼ inches. That's great. The blade length, the blade length is 4¼ cutting edge is coming in at about, if I'm measuring it correctly, 3.85. So there is a lot of blade. In terms of like the blade to handle ratio, this thing is obviously mostly blade. I know that a lot of people are going to be attracted to that element of it. So let's go ahead and do some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Ontario Rat Model 2. I realize that there might be some fixed blades people would like to see up against this knife, but again, I'm a folding knife channel, so the knives that I use for size comparison are generally folding knives. So you can see there that this blade has a lot of presence, and it is definitely in the blade. The blade is very tall, right? But we look at that, or at least I look at that differently, because the blade doesn't fold, right? But the sheath itself, well, the knife with the sheath on it, which we're going to talk about here in a second, does create some additional height, so keep that in mind. But not quite as long as the, in fact, nowhere near as long as the Rat number 2. It is actually more the overall length, more similar overall length compared to the Rat 2. Did I say that? Rat 1 is the larger one, Rat 2 is the smaller one. How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and Spyderco Para 3? Once again, nowhere near as long as the PM2, but just a little bit shorter actually than the Para 3. Interesting. And last but not least, let's put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, and its little brother, the Benchmade Mini Griptilian. It's actually just a little bit longer than the Mini Griptilian, but something that it's got over all of those knives is cutting edge. Maximum cutting edge, anything that I showed, was the Rat number 1, and you can see there, it's way more cutting edge. So do with that information what you will. Let's see here. I'll go ahead and do a hardware check. I mean, it's a fixed blade, right? But if you want to take it apart, you might want to know. Get out my tools here. As per usual, it's way over here. My tools are very inexpensive, very recommendable. You can find them right down in the description. I'm going to guess that those are, boy, are they T? I kind of want to try a T10. Let's try a T10. So here we go. Got a T10 here. Let me take a look here real quick. And are they going to fit? No. So they're going to be T8s, and we'll just check that. I know people are like, it's obviously T8, just move on. No, I got to check it. Even though I could have checked it before the video, I don't care. I want to do it right here on camera so everybody can see it. T8 on the screws. I like the screws. I mean, he could have gone with something ultra simple, right? But they look nice. It's cool. So everything's T8. You've got 4 body screws. If you want to take those carbon fiber scales off of there and put something else on, okay, then that's what you're going to be working with. Let's go ahead and measure blade stock thickness on this guy. Get out my calipers real quick. I'm going to guess that blade stock is about 165 thousandths. Perhaps it's a little bit thicker. We'll find out here in just a moment. Blade stock thickness is coming in. Actually, it's reading about 158 thousandths. Maybe it's about 160 thousandths, something like that. Fairly similar to like the ZT0562 or Hinder XM18. I think that's probably appropriate. This is going to be capable of a little bit more, right, intense use than a folding knife because it is a fixed blade. So geometry up here, nice and thick and robust. It does trail out to a pretty thin tip. So obviously there are certain things it's going to excel at and other things that you wouldn't want to do with it, like prying, right? Or hammering the tip into a block of concrete. It just depends on what it is you want to do, right? Let's go ahead and weigh it. I'll weigh it with the sheath and without the sheath. So weight on this guy, we are looking at 4.73. Let's make sure it's totally on the scale. 4.7 ounces. Let's go ahead and put it in the sheath so you guys can see. Whoops, I put it upside down. I promise we will talk about the sheath here in a sec. With the sheath, 6.63 ounces. So you guys know my personal rule. I carry knives anywhere between about 4 to 6.5 ounces. As long as it, carries comfortably, then it's something that I'm going to enjoy. This is right at the tippy top. But yeah, this is not something that's going to bother me. I've actually had this thing in and out of my pocket, and I'm okay with how it carries, right? I mean, there's a lot of different ways to carry this, right? You can put it, I just put it in my pocket. I'm not somebody who wants to put it on the outside of my belt, but you can obviously do that, right? There's a bunch of different ways. So there you go. There's the information on the weight. Again, do with that information what you will. Have we covered everything? I think we have. Let's go ahead and get both of these knives out here and the sheaths. So I really like the profile of this knife. In fact, this was the one out of everything, and Jim, if you're watching, out of everything that you do, which there's a lot of really cool stuff. Like Jim has his own, if you've watched his channel and you've seen the knives that he likes to collect, he kind of goes towards the more crazy lines and the more there's a lot more busyness going on in the grinds and the aesthetic, right? That's generally what I've gathered, and I'm not going to pretend to know him personally or anything like that, though we have talked many times on Instagram, and he's a super nice guy. In fact, even at the very beginning, when I was just a little teeny, not to say that my channel's gigantic or anything, but when I was just a little teeny tiny whatever, I said, hey, what's up? And he messaged back and he was like, hey, I said I enjoyed watching your channel for so long, and he said, hey, thanks, man, I appreciate it. He was just a really nice guy. So I appreciate that, Jim, I really do. Yeah, this, I looked at this and I was like, that's Jim Skelton, definitely. Like that just looks like something that he would make, and I like it. There's holes in the blade, right? A lot of people are going to point out, oh my gosh, there's a fuller and there's holes. That's going to be a big gunk trap. Same thing I always say. I don't care. The holes serve no functional purpose. They're just there for aesthetics, and I kind of like it, right? There are definitely knives that have holes placed in weird spots on the frame where I'm like, eh. But a lot of times when we've got that on the blade, right, I've seen some bag knives, some Microtech knives, right, where I really like that. I've said that many times. I don't know, if it's placed correctly, or in this case, if it's in a fuller, right, I think it looks really good. Clean your blades off after you use them, and you probably won't have an issue there. So what are the materials here? We're looking at carbon fiber and we're looking at M390. That is absolutely the case. Fit and finish all the way around. If you guys are familiar with Reate knives, they do an excellent job. These knives are no exception. Looking at, how the scale meets up with the tang of the blade back here, it is seamless. You can't feel any transition or anything like that. It's really, really good. And the carbon fiber looks good too. The other thing I want to point out that I really appreciate is we don't have excessively thick, like between the scale and the tang and the scale on the other side, it's not insano thick, right? I mean, it's enough to feel confident, but it's not so much that you're like, ugh. So if you go to his video on this and you go down in the description, he told me to go down there and take a look. He talks about his reasoning here. Apparently a lot of people who are designing fixed blades to make it compact, they'll shorten up the blade and then keep the handle length to where most people can get a 4-finger purchase on it. He went the other way and made a much shorter handle and a much, much longer blade. I definitely like the blade length. I mean, this is really, considering the overall size of this thing, he really maxed out the blade length. I'll tell you guys, I've got that rule about wanting to get a full purchase on a knife. Honestly, because of how this is, you can choke up right behind the blade. I can just barely get 4 fingers on there. Like a lot of people that have larger hands than me, obviously you're going to be slipping off the end, and I'd be lying if I told you guys that I wasn't slipping off the end a bit. The purchase is still very good. This is still a really comfortable knife. I wish, just for me, I wish the handle was just a little tiny bit longer, right? But then it's like people who have hands that are that much bigger than mine, I'd be like, I wish the handle was just that much longer for me. If you have smaller hands than me, you're still going to be able to get a full purchase on this guy, right? If you've got larger hands than me, you're going to find yourself in a 3-finger position. I think it just really depends on how you feel about that. As far as comfort goes, yeah, it's really comfortable. You're locked in here, right? The jimping right here, this little dip in the blade, it's a nice spot to rest your thumb. I think with a knife like this, I'm often going to be gripping it like this and doing draw cuts, right? If I'm breaking down cardboard boxes, I might be doing more of a hammer grip like that. But this also has, like, if you read in there, it says that this knife was designed as a tool and a self-defense item. I actually really like that he wasn't like, this is self-defense, but no, there was still a utility element in this. That's something that I appreciate, because when I look at a Wharncliffe blade, I understand, actually I can't speak on the whole self-defense aspect of it because I don't know anything about that, right? But I do see a utility blade shape, right? I see a blade shape that's super beneficial when you're trying to shape material, right? If you're working with, I don't know, if you're working with, sheetrock or something like that, when something just doesn't quite fit right. Everybody who's worked construction or has just done anything as simple as just hanging shelves in their living room, sometimes how everything fits together, it's just not exactly right. And it's really convenient to just take a Wharncliffe style blade, right? And usually it's like a utility knife, right? And just make a quick cut. You just cut a little wedge out of something so that it fits just right. That's oftentimes what I find myself doing with a blade shape like this, and that's what I appreciate about it. So I really like, the point I'm making is I'm really happy that there was an element of utility here. Jim recognized the fact that people are going to want to actually use these knives, take them out and EDC them. Now, a blade shape that's super tall like this and super long is going to be more or less practical in any circumstance, and that's me. It's throwing this really foggy sort of dialogue at it to, escape the argument of, well, if it were smaller and lighter and not lighter, but if it was a leaner, had less height, right? Different blade shapes, different lengths, different profiles are going to be more or less convenient in an infinite number of circumstances for an infinite number of individuals. That's just the way that it is. For me, this is something that I wouldn't have a problem carrying, even considering, the height of the sheath. It's tall, right? You're going to have, where's the stupid tape? There it is. So at maximum height here, you're looking at 2¼ inches, right? That's a lot of, my knife pocket is dedicated to my knife, right? This is, if I was going to carry this, it's going to go, let me get this back in the sheath. It's going to go in my, I'm trying to watch out for that blade because it's definitely sharp. This is going to go in my pocket like this. And considering the depth of pocket on my regular pants, this is going to sink in well with just a little bit of the handle sticking up out of the pocket, which is going to be convenient for me. I don't carry anything else in my knife pocket, right? So the height isn't going to bother me. If you carry other things in your knife pocket, it might bother you. Your pocket might feel really crammed in, right? If you carry it on the outside of your pants, which is probably, I'm going to guess what most people will do, right? Then it's not going to be nearly as much of an issue for you. I think no matter how you carry it, I mean, this just looks like something that's just going to be convenient, more convenient to carry than a lot of the other fixed blade knives that are geared towards EDC. I mean, you're getting a lot of blade for how much object you're carrying, and that's something that I appreciate and something that I'm emphasizing here. Again, maybe I'm a little biased because I really like aggressive Wharncliffes, right? But yeah, that's how I feel about this. This is how I'm going to carry it. It's not going to bother me. The weight's not going to bother me. I like the sheath. I like how they've got this, the strap comes around and just attaches to this pin right here. It's kind of neat. I mean, I would advise probably leaving that on there, but I'm trying to imagine reaching into my pants and just sort of pulling that pin back and then pulling. Well, if you get that strap out of the way, you just sort of push on the back end of the sheath and pull it out of there. It'll work fine. This appears to be a high quality leather sheath. I gotta be honest with you guys, I'm not a great judge when it comes to sheath quality. So I have no idea. I know some people prefer leather and some people prefer Kydex. To be honest with you, I don't know if he has a Kydex option, right? I mean, whatever. For me, it's like whatever sheath it comes with is the sheath that I'm gonna, that's what I'm gonna be carrying. So it is what it is. It appears to be high quality. I don't have an issue with it. It doesn't, have like threads or flaps hanging out anywhere. It doesn't appear to be falling apart or anything like that. But again, this is coming from somebody who's not a sheath expert. So do with that information what you will. Let's go ahead and move on and talk about the knife now that we're 17 minutes in. So this has gross fingerprints all over it. I'm going to try to get those off for you guys here real quick. Like I said, carbon fiber looks great. The blade looks awesome. In this case, we have a two-tone, sort of a concrete tumbled finish on the flat. And then down here we have the belt satin finish, which looks nice, definitely. Corners are nicely knocked down. There's nothing aggressively sharp up here until you get down to this edge right here, which is because the tumbling, right, the two different, didn't I? But okay, no big deal. The only time you're going to be up there is when you're going to be doing draw cuts like this, and that doesn't really bother my finger. This does come down to a pretty thin edge. It's going to slice, and the nice thing is, for people wondering about, if I'm going to cut food with this, right? The way that the blade is shaped, you can absolutely lay the edge flat down on a surface. So that's going to be nice. Again, though, pointing out, there's holes here. So you're going to get food, and so you're going to have to clean it out. You're going to have to take 20 extra seconds to clean your knife out, which I would recommend. But you can do that, so that's cool. I mean, if you're going to, lay a sausage down or something and slice it up, then you can do that, right? An apple, whatever it is you're going to do, that's great. People on Instagram were asking me about the tip. The tip gets really fine, right? So obviously you're not going to want to take this and go jamming it into something and prying around with it, right? Use your best judgment. But it does have a nice puncture tip. I mean, if you break down if you get into a lot of packages, right? This is like this is a package opening machine, man. It's ready to go. But seriously, I mean, this is a knife that's going to make stuff like that super convenient, where you just have to release some type of adhesive or strap. You have to release an object from something that's bound by that. A knife like this is going to be great. I'm sure it's great for self-defense. I'm sure it is. I don't know anything about it. I know you guys want me to talk about that, but I can't. I'm not going to pretend to, be able to offer expertise on that. The edge is done really well. Nice, glassy, smooth edge. It is razor sharp. I've been really careful about, because of the ratios, it's funny, like my hands are like being, careful with it because I've got this smaller handle and this larger blade. And so my hands are like, what is this? So I'm constantly, like, when I'm playing on the sheath, I'm trying to be really careful and not touch the edge because, yeah, it's really sharp. It'll definitely, I mean, that's the case with most knives, but that's just, the ratios are throwing me off and I'm being extra cautious with something that my hands aren't used to handling, right? But yeah, it looks great. I like the Skelton Bladeworks logo. I think that looks great. It's not too like flashy in your face or anything like that. It's in a good spot on the blade. I think it looks good. And then on the other side, it just says Reate. These are M390. So there's a lot of different blade steels that we could have put on this knife that would have worked just fine. I think, considering the price point that he was after, I think a lot of people who are going to pick this up are going to appreciate M390. Of course, you get the excellent stainless qualities. You get excellent edge retention. It's not going to be super tough, and it's definitely not going to be easy to sharpen. But I think a lot of that is made up for, when we're talking about how easy something is to sharpen, at least it is one continuous straight edge, right? There's no curvatures, recurves, there's no tanto or anything like that. So at least there's that for sure. Again, like the hardware, like how it looks. There's a big lanyard hole. If you want to put a lanyard on there, it might make it on a fixed blade. It might make it a little bit easier for some people to grip it or pull it out of their pocket. So there you go, right? The reason I'm not coming down on this knife for having a lanyard hole is because my argument usually with lanyard holes is, why did they put it here? They had to move the pocket clip to some other stupid location, right? So now we have the lanyard hole prioritized. That's not the case. There's no pocket clip, right? So the lanyard hole is just there. If you want to use it, great. If you don't want to use it, great, right? There's, in some situations, an added benefit to a lanyard hole. This is a comfortable knife. This is a knife that absolutely feels, like I would use it. If I bought this knife, I would use it. There's a lot of elements here that just make me feel like, yeah, this is definitely going to work well. Do you need this tall of a blade? Do you need this long of a blade? Again, some people will, some people won't. I just like it. With this, there's a lot of cool factor here. I like the ratios on this thing. I like that it looks like this tiny battle cleaver. That's what it looks like to me, right? But it's not like it's totally geared towards that. It's not like he just slapped together some aesthetics and was like, here's a knife. No, it actually will work. It actually will make a lot of things in my day-to-day really easy. Is it still overkill for my day-to-day, my regular knife guy day? Well, yeah, right? But I'm not going to carry something like this purely, I'm like, oh, all of the, utilitarian ratios are exactly perfect. And they're going to line up exactly right for all the different tasks that I do on a day-to-day basis. No, it'll do that stuff, but it's also really cool. Come on. That's why I like stuff like this. It's just neat, right? So what do these come in at? Like I said, link down below. When I first unboxed it, there was a pre-order link. But these are going to hit most major retailers that carry Reate knives, as far as I understand. So I'll try and link as much of that stuff as I can. I don't know by the time you're watching it. So these are expensive, right? We are looking at a fixed blade. We're looking at carbon fiber, and we're looking at M390. These come in, to my understanding, if I'm wrong, then I will correct myself in some text up on the screen. I believe these are going to come in at $295. $295 gets you a lot of knife in today's knife world, but it fully depends on what you need and what you appreciate about the knife. This is Reate quality, and it's also a Reate price point. It does feel a little bit high. It does feel a little bit high, and it's because we have, on a folding knife, we have more moving parts. There's, I'm not going to pretend to understand all of this, but I would venture to guess that the cost of manufacturing something that's got a lot of extra parts and a lot of moving parts, right? There's probably more cost that goes into that. You can get quality folding knives with the same materials for less money, right? But again, we're talking about Reate. Reate is definitely a step up on the manufacturing quality front versus other companies that are also using materials like this right now. So yeah, is there an increase in price that I think is justified, going through Reate? Yes, but that said, it's still kind of like, it's a little bit high to me. People who are big into fixed blades, premium fixed blades, right? They want that wow factor. You really like Warncliffs, right? You're going to see a lot more value in that. What would I want? What would I have wanted to be this? Like if I'm going to make a comment like that, if I'm like, oh, it feels a little overpriced, then it's like I have to follow up with what I think it should be priced at. Well, here's the problem, guys. It's much easier to say that than it is to come up with what I think the price should be, right? That makes me look like an idiot and sound like an idiot. But that's my organic thought, right? It's a bit high. It's not insane. This is still a Reate. I might have been a bit more comfortable at about $260, $265. How do I arrive at that price point? Tell us exactly how you arrived at that price point. I don't know. A lot of times when I say stuff like that, it's just a gut instinct. But what I'm measuring out is what I'm feeling in terms of quality. the materials, things like that, and how it would fit into my day-to-day life and what I would use it for. All of those things kind of, whether they should or not, right? They kind of fit into my own personal value system. I like this knife. I think it's really cool, and I think people who decide to pick it up are going to be really happy with it. But number one, you kind of have to be a fixed blade person. Like if you're just like a hardcore folding knife person, you may not be super interested in this, right? I think you got to be kind of a fixed blade person. You got to kind of be I like to EDC a fixed blade type of person. The best part about this knife is how much blade you're getting, how much usable cutting edge you're getting for how, the overall length, the overall size of the object. Again, if you don't carry anything else in your knife pocket besides your knife, right? If you're like me and you want to carry this in your pocket, you don't want to have anything else in your knife pocket. It's not going to be a problem if you carry it on your belt, because it's not, unless you're Batman, you don't have a bunch of other crap hanging off your belt, right? And it's 6.5 total ounces, roughly. I just don't think that's much to carry around. Some people are going to disagree with me, but for me, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think this is really cool. I think people who are into this are really going to like it. The quality's absolutely there, right? Reate does a good job with their heat treat. Just overall fit and finish, everything's great. This is cool. I like this. I am going to be putting this on my recommended knives playlist, and I'm also going to be putting it in my fixed blade playlist, which is not an extensive playlist because, again, I don't generally review a lot of fixed blades. But seriously, there are not a lot of fixed blades that make me want to consider carrying a fixed blade. This is one of them. I would say I've maybe seen 6 or 7 total that I'm like, I would EDC that. This is one of them. I mean that. Absolutely. This is really cool. I hope I didn't leave anything out. Even at 27 minutes, I always feel like I'm leaving things out. I should show you guys the darker one up close, right? Even though the camera doesn't like to focus really well on like a black finish. Let me stand up and make sure that I'm actually getting the definition that's required. Yeah, it's a nice black wash. It's the black wash that you can expect from Reate, and it looks great. If you want the, really tactical looking one, then definitely go with that. This is probably the one that I personally would go with. I just like how that looks, right? Anyways, guys, I don't think there's much more that I need to say. These were cool. Thank you again, Jim, for sending these in for me to take a look at. I really appreciate that. Guys, make sure you follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.